Welcome back to Tech Direct. Mark Kaigwa here alongside Mbogo Jihia, and we are still talking about predictions for 2012. I predict an election. Okay, but seriously though, that's already that didn't take genius to predict that. But besides that, I think one interesting thing that we're definitely going to see more of is the conversation around education and the skills shortage of African talent. I mean, globally, we've sort of come to see how this huge pool of money out in the valley, in the US, in Europe, for startups means that, everybody and their cousins, aunts, sisters, niece, is joining a startup right out of college, meaning a gap in jobs, a gap in technical talent. That gives African developers, African technical and non-technical guys an opportunity to not only export their services but do international work, incredible work. I saw this story. I wanted to fact check it, but it seemed pretty accepted that there's a guy from JKU at 20-something-year-old who got hired by Twitter
as a senior engineer.
Yeah, that kind of threw me off. This is a big story, that this guy has been hired. I didn't see any link or any confirmation from Twitter yet, but the university fact checked it. A whole bunch of other blogs sort of had picked it up. So maybe the guys, I hope it's not like Twitter, and it's like, what? Twitter? Oh yeah, you got hit by Twitter. Like the African Twitter. Anyway, hitting aside. So one of the things I think we saw was, for technical people, there's a whole blog post on AfriNovator about 15 skills that African top tech talent has to learn in 2012. But design, it can be overstated how underrepresented the design field is on the web. There are a dime a dozen, and finding that kind of talent that's a big opportunity. You look at African websites.
We are a template-driven society. I think we need we need to really go back to the basics, because at the end of the day, I think when you talk about technology is more about solutions to the consumer, and what the consumer sees is the front end. Regardless of what happened, the magic that happens behind, no one really cares. But the front face is what the consumer really cares about and drives adoption.
Right.
So I think it's to what you're saying. One of the key skills we need to see going forward in the tech space is just and design here translates not just for websites and mobile apps. I think it translates for everything.
User experience.
Whether you're looking at technology from the point of view of a more efficient thing for chopping up Napier grass, it just needs to look good. It needs to be functional design, and aesthetics go hand in hand.
I was thinking very random, but I thought about how come no one's ever questioned how these guys roast maize? Like how can someone improve on? I know if that's a designer. That's a problem for a designer. So a designer is not just someone who sits and is on Photoshop like all day, but someone who can sketch and actually find a more creative way. I think the last prediction for 2012 could be, Africa's most populous country on the tech scene. Everybody's talking about Silicon Savannah, Silicon Cape in South Africa. But a very interesting point of view was brought up, over the past couple of weeks. Are we going to see Silicon Lagoon, come out of Nigeria? It's about time. They obviously have the finances. They are, I think, Africa's, atop the African economy, wherever you look on whatever basis. So, and the most populous one on the continent. And in West Africa, we really haven't seen, a country. Accra is, we've seen some movement in Ghana, but Nigeria is poised really to lead in tech. I mean, they've got a lot of things going in their favor, and maybe 2012 is the year we'll see them step up and take a more strategic position globally in that respect.
And maybe that said, if you're in Nigeria, if you're running a startup, if you think you're the next big thing, drop us a line. We'd be happy to share a story with the rest of Africa and see where we're headed in 2012.
Right.
Now, that said, events. Where do you need to be in 2012 to make sure you're connected? Of course, first up is Pivot East. Pivot East is follows Pivot. What was that? Pivot 25.
Right.
Pivot 25 from 2011. Pivot 25 saw over 100 entries from 5 different countries and 5 different categories, and word on the street is that Pivot East is going to be bigger, better, both from a financing perspective and from an expectations perspective. So do check out, I think, one second, let me pull out that URL. It's pivoteast.com. You get more details on that. Another big event that's happening in April is called East Africa Com. Now, East Africa Com brings together anyone who's anyone in the telecom space in East Africa. And the theme for this year is to look at how to really extract more value from value-added services. We've seen the cost of communication going down with, cost per minute, whether you look at voice or cost per SMS going down. So how do you get to play in that space? How do you get to make money in that space? The place to be will be East Africa Com.
Right. I think for me, if I'm just going to single out two events, I am a bit biased. Full disclosure, I'll be speaking at both of them. But the first one is All Amber's Mobile Web East Africa. So that's in February. As it stands, I think it's February 22nd and 23rd at the Sankara Hotel in Westlands. And, great guys. All Amber put together incredible events. Spoke at a few of them last year. Really, really good bunch of guys, and very interesting format. Very non-conferencey. I think another thing with events is that you do too many conferences and there's some not so politically correct.
Hopefully this year we get to see more case studies, because
right.
And in the inaugural event, Mobile Web East Africa, there are a lot of South African case studies. And
right.
Someone said, I've flown all the way from South Africa to East Africa to hear a South African speak about stuff that's happening in South Africa. So hopefully this year we get to see more East African case studies. I know some media houses like Capital FM have been doing some interesting things in that space.
Right.
Hopefully the team at Squad also have some magic they've been cooking. And maybe some smaller companies and the innovations, we'll get to see them.
Right, I think all I'll say is challenge accepted.
Yes, exactly.
I think the second one is, I believe the MMA, Mobile Marketing Association East Africa chapter, are going to have a summit, two events, one for marketers, one for senior management, CMOs, and the like. So that's also something to look out for. I think obviously I'm pretty mobile biased. It is going to be a big year for mobile, whichever way you look at it. Let's just hope. I just hope someone takes a swing at the status quo like it did, like Airtel did. And whether it's Orange, whether it's you, someone needs to disrupt the space. And I think a couple announcements coming over the coming month now. We're going to be hearing some news out of the M Lab. I know a couple launches are getting geared up. I believe, I don't know if I can fully talk about it, but there's
you heard it here first.
Some tools
upstarts, startup upstarts.
Well, I'm trying to figure out the way to say it without saying it. So there's one of these companies here will be launching their fully fledged product they've been working on for more than a few years now, or just over a year. And we're also going to see another M Lab startup check in, hopefully, to the Unreasonable Institute. So go figure. I think in a few weeks everything will become clearer, but as at shooting I'm tired not to mention too much.
Okay, we'll be right back. And we're back. One of the cool things about what we do is get to test devices and sometimes keep them. In the next segment, Mark is going to walk us through the hottest devices in the market, and you don't want to miss that. See you in a bit.